Reed!
Avery!
We're back!
We're back in the most magical time of year, of course.
The most magical place in the whole world?
The most magical place in the whole world, the most magical time of the whole year.
What time is that, Reed?
It's Halloween. Just about. We're shooting slightly ahead of Halloween. It's our big annual Halloween deep dive. Second annual Halloween deep dive. Last Halloween, we sat down and we watched Phantasm for the very first time. To mixed reviews. You were kind of medium on it, right?
Yeah, I respected some of the ideas of it, but I didn't have a great time watching it. It kind of fell outside of my area of interest, and I was like, meh.
I think you had a line in our episode where you said, I can't believe you tricked me into watching a David Lynch film.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty accurate. It was very Lynchy, which makes sense why I would love it, and you
Proto-Lynch.
Proto-Lynch, and you might not have loved it as much. I liked it enough I went out and bought this little fellow, the old box set. Because the weird thing about Phantasm is they're like still going on. Like the fifth one came out like 2 years ago, and it's still with the same writer, director, and Reggie.
Apparently Don Coscarelli his career didn't really take off. He's not getting scooped up by A24 or the DCU.
He just kept making Phantasms.
Right.
I really enjoyed it, and so last Halloween after we did our episode, I was like, I gotta watch more. I watched the second one. I remembered finishing it, and not really, like the next day, not remembering a lot of details, but thinking we need to do it for deep dive. And I think why I didn't remember a lot of details I want to get into. I think this movie in general is hard to place. It's hard to remember why things happen, where things happen, how things happen, which kind of makes it a hard movie to recall in your head of like, oh yeah, because it's not exactly an ABC plot. It's very weird. And I don't think I've ever in a deep dive written why. Why, how, why are they there? Who is this? More in a notes than with Phantasm 2.
It's really funny. I can't disagree, but I didn't write that at all because I never cared.
Oh, I don't care.
Okay.
It was more these little moments of like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
That's how they decided to do it. But I remember liking it. I thought we should keep doing this. So this Halloween we sat down and watched Phantasm 2. You'd never seen it.
We're giving the people what they want. You guys you've been clamoring for more Phantasm.
We're just trying to appeal to the algorithm. Everyone's talking about Phantasm. and yeah, if we watched it, and I'd say if the first Phantasm was pseudo art film, try to be very heady, very dreamlike, very artistic, and I'd say that it was a flawed movie, but it would try to be very an auteur director doing his vision of a horror film. This is kind of this genre, like Phantasm's straight action movie, I should say, or straight.
We talk about Alien and aliens in every video.
I know,
but This is Aliens to the Aliens.
It really is,
for
because
sure.
This is the big schlocky 80s action movie of Phantasm.
Yeah,
where they just take the stuff that was in the first one, they drop all the survival horror stuff and just fill it with ridiculous action and over-the-top set pieces and just turn it into a big romp that doesn't take itself seriously. I mean, I think I've kind of already... I quite enjoy this movie. I think it was very fun, very silly, does not take itself seriously. I think it's a good movie night kind of movie. Like, there's a lot of moments in this I was laughing out loud by myself. I imagine with a group would be a lot funnier. I think it doesn't make any sense.
No.
It doesn't make any sense. Like, when I say I've written questions throughout the whole thing, this movie is nonsense. Mm-hmm. But that all added to my entertainment value, even though it did not. The script literally is a dream. It doesn't make sense at all. But I still enjoyed it overall. I think it's hilarious. And it makes me even more curious where the franchise could possibly go from here. We'll get more into that. What did you think of Phantasm 2?
I actually had a pretty good time.
Okay.
I think you've summed it up pretty well. This movie took some of the fun things about the first one and just kind of filled them in with bare minimum. It was a lot less heady. It was a lot more... You know what it actually felt a lot like to me? It felt like a very old-timey, like Universal monster movie. It was a little bit more violent than that.
Yeah.
But in the way, it was just like, we're two guys, and we're going to hit the road and go get Frankenstein, and we're going to kick him into some cardboard walls. And that's it. And it had like a good score.
Great score.
I like some of the effects were a big step up. The budget obviously took a jump, and they used that very well.
It did. It's a very good-looking movie.
Yeah, for
some
what
nice
it is.
Shots. There's actually some like surprisingly nice-looking shots.
Yeah.
There's some great creature effects, good gore effects.
Which I really appreciated for sure. It is nice that it's two grown-ups are the main character. Well, 3 or 4 grown-ups as opposed to the kid. It's sort of a different, again, more action-y. And it was just a fun little romp. I would say that the boring parts dragged a lot less than the first one.
Yeah.
It was just kind of strung me along more, and it was a lot more of just like a fun couch time. Than...
It's still got its boring parts. It's got some walk around the hallways scenes that go on a little while. But overall, I think it's a lot more engaging, and I think the studio, well, I read in the trivia that the studio basically told them no dream sequences, no mysticism, just make it a more straightforward story. And this was clearly his attempt to do that. You said Universal Monster movie. You could easily have had the tall man be a terrorist and have this be an Arnold 80s action revenge movie or like a Rambo. Like there's not, it's just two guys chasing down a guy they want to get revenge on. The whole Phantasm lore is almost incidental to that.
Let's go, Mike. We got things to do.
But yeah, I think we should jump into it. There's a lot to kind of unpack in this movie, so let's jump into the old deep dive as always. Spoilers. Spoilers for 1988's Phantasm 2.
Really intricate plot. You're gonna really regret it if you hear us spoil it.
Technically subtitled "The Ball Is Back."
Is that really what it's? I did not see that.
And I don't know if they dropped it from because like on the box it has like "The Ball Is Back." In certain versions online, it is ":The Ball Is Back."
That just reeks so bad of the studio exec. Like, people like the ball. You gotta talk about the ball.
It's not like people really liked the ball.
I mean, I guess it's like they had like one focus group of 3 people, and they're like, I think I saw that. There was like a ball
with the balls.
And they're like, yeah, we gotta put that on the poster.
That's the whole thing is the balls. The movie opens with our new character, Psychic Girl. I think her name's Elizabeth?
Yeah, or Liz. They call her
Liz.
Liz, short for Elizabeth. Yeah.
And basically, the movie opens with her having a psychic connection with Mike from the first movie and just seeing the end of Phantasm 1 as we shot for shot as we saw it. But then they kind of add extra scenes to kind of turn it into a real ending. Because Phantasm 1 ends with Mike thinking this was all a dream and he's actually safe. He goes up to his bedroom. The tall man does the boy. And pulls him through a mirror. And basically now we see it actually went on from that. It wasn't like...
Yeah.
Because to me, that ending of Phantasm 1 was very like ambiguous and spooky in a way of like, oh, he's been dragged to the Shadow Realm. How are they going to save Mike? But then he's just like in the house still in like a body bag.
Yeah.
So they like pulled him through a mirror, but then they just drag him out of the house.
I mean, they're very deliberately like, maybe it's a dream sequence because they did not think they were going to get a sequel. And now they're like, oh, crap.
Yeah. And then Reggie has an incredible little action sequence where he fights some dwarves. We get to see the dwarves close up.
He does.
He climbs like up a laundry chute. He's running all around. I'll say throughout the whole movie, Reggie's a good action star, which I never thought I would say.
Oh yeah, no, he does good. And one thing I wrote here, all in caps, was they got some prosthetics.
They did.
You actually, because in the first one, do you even see a dwarf? You just see the robes.
I think it's like Jawa
and then they got the face, and it's like actually pretty good. I was like, yeah,
it's like articulated and wet and spooky.
Yeah, it was fun.
So yeah, we kind of get this whole flashback. It establishes that so Mike was taken by the tall man, but then gets rescued by Reggie. The whole house explodes.
Yeah, so there's like, I don't know, they were trying to do some things. Like, so the lady from Liz, she's recording in a dream diary because she's like, she's on getting therapy.
She is The Shining.
She has like a dream about gas being left on, or like she checks the gas on her stove. And then, and then like later, so they're trying to set stuff up here. There is some effort, and at a certain point, there's like, nah.
Yeah.
So like she checks the gas, and then Reggie, while he's fighting, knocks the gas, and then later Mike realizes that the gas is on.
And blows the house up.
But then it blows up later also?
No, that's Reggie's house.
And, okay. So
we'll get to that later.
They're trying to set up and have some like payoff and foreshadowing and like The Shining, but...
Yeah, so she has a psychic connection with Mike.
Yeah.
She knows about the tall man. She needs Mike to come save her.
Because she's a lady.
Because she's a woman and needs to be saved by a man, of course.
A big hunky man like Mike.
Mike, we've grown up together. I know you're out there.
They kind of build up the tall man lore in the Dream Diary. They establish that he goes town to town, kills everyone, and then takes the bodies out of the graves and turns them into dwarves. So we get some kind of expanding on the tall man lore, that he is literally going town to town, post-apocalypse style, and wiping out communities. And I guess the girl knows this, Mike knows this because of their psychic connection.
His army of creatures destroys towns and plunders their graveyards to enslave the dead.
Well, yeah, so we cut to Mike. He's been in an insane asylum
Yeah.
for like
right.
10 years, like from when he was a little boy, and he's being let out because he's 19 now.
Right, yes.
He's been recast as James LaGrosse, who I think was like a big B-movie 80s guy, like a lot of budget stuff.
He was better than I was expecting. He was definitely better than, was it Jody in the first one? He was better than that.
He's fine.
He's like a guy.
He's fine. I've seen him I've seen him on Girls.
Okay.
Weirdly, where he plays like a dad.
Yeah, I have to be like 60 at that point.
Yeah, like 50s.
Yeah.
So like, because he was quite young. You know what's really crazy? Brad Pitt auditioned for this role.
Get out. This would have been like before Thelma and
Yeah,
Louise.
and he didn't get it. Like
Oh
he
my
lost to James LaGrosse.
That's so funny.
Gets out, goes to the graveyard immediately because Mike is like fixated on getting the tall man.
Look at this, goddammit! Now that's the third one I dug up.
I guess this experience as a child. Well, he killed his brother.
Kinda.
I think he killed his brother. So
The continuity here is...
Mike wants revenge for his brother, goes to the graveyard, Reggie's there.
Yeah.
The reunion people have been asking for a generation.
I was afraid I'd find you here. Come on, Mike. Get up out of there.
Reggie is old?
I guess, yeah, because he was like middle-aged in the first one, kinda.
This is okay. We gotta talk about, because he's got this like crappy gray spray paint in to make him look old. Reggie was supposed to be like in his 20s in the first movie.
I think he probably was. Just people looked older back then,
Right.
plus he's full bald.
But he looked like he was 40.
Yeah, and this movie's what, 10 years later
10
it was
years
actually
later,
made, but
he
then
still looks like he's 40, and he's supposed to be 40, but they put gray hair in, so now he looks like he's like 60.
Yeah.
I just found this very entertaining.
And later on he bangs like a 20-year-old lady, so
We'll get to
that,
alchemy.
but-
That was something. So they embrace. Reggie doesn't remember the ending of the first movie. He says like, "Oh, I was in your head, Mike. You're going crazy."
That story about me blowing up my own house because it was infested with midgets. Mike, that wasn't real.
It says like, "Let me take you home. My wife's gonna make dinner. See the wife and kids."
Dinner's waiting for you. Aunt Martha came down and Celeste baked a turkey.
And on the drive home, the tall man psychic connects with Mike and gives some foreboding message, and then pulling into the driveway, Reggie's family home with his whole family inside blows up.
Reg, we gotta get the people out of your house, man. The gas in there's gonna go up and it's gonna blow!
I love that they didn't bother to have the extras.
No.
They
There's no
could've-
scene with the wife on the phone.
How hard would that have been? And that Reggie's just like, all my loved ones were in there, trust me.
You gotta believe me. They really were.
We gotta get him out! Oh, we gotta get him out!
I want to call it one small thing, one line that I love. The guy who's running like the parole hearing for Mike, right as he's leaving, as after they have the meeting where he's like, all right, you're sane, you're ready to go. He just goes, remember, Mike, it's all in your head.
It's all in your imagination.
Like, it sounds innocuous, but I was just thinking about that. Like, that's the worst possible thing to
Plus,
say.
if you have to be telling him that still, maybe he's not ready to be out of the insane asylum.
Reg, we gotta get the people out of your house, man. The gas in there's gonna go up and it's gonna blow!
Quick pause before we continue with the plot here. I have this is one of my whys. Why do they do this?
Right.
Because there's so much storytelling to be had about the tall man terrorizing young children. There's
Yeah.
lots of horror movie franchises built on this concept. This movie is the second one in the franchise, but makes the choice to jump 10 years and turn Mike into a 19-year-old.
Yeah.
Which to me makes sense if this was like the fourth movie in the franchise. It's like, oh, it's adult Mike. But it feels like there's a lot of untapped potential for like Mike as a kid still battling the tall man that they've just cut out entirely and jumped to him being an adult, which feels much like a much later sequel than the second one.
Yeah, that's interesting. I know something you really liked about the first one was that it felt like a little kid having a nightmare.
Yeah.
That was kind of where some of the horror came from, and you do lose that by making it 20-year-olds. And Yeah, the tall man, the fact that the main characters aren't really scared of him at all.
Yeah.
Like, he's still kind of intimidating, but...
It just feels like unnecessary plot contrivance because it's like
Yeah.
Reggie didn't have a family in the first movie.
No.
And then this movie establishes Reggie has a family and doesn't believe Mike.
Probably one of those women he saved off screen in the first one. He married them and raised kids off screen.
Exactly. But they create this plot blocker of
Yeah.
Reggie has a family so he won't go help you defeat the tall man.
Hey, the doctors and you too if you don't want to help me.
God damn it, Mike, I've tried to help you. What the hell am I supposed to do?
And in like the same scene they introduced that, they are blown up. And it's like, why even have that? Just have Reggie know the tall man's real.
This felt like, I mean, you mentioned that the studio said no dream sequences. This kind of felt like a bunch of erasing happened. Because it was like, the first 20 minutes here is kind of a lot of very high concept. Is it a dream? Is it not? Time jump? Did this part really? And then it's all very straightforward after that.
Yeah.
So I think he was just kind of like trying to scotch tape all this together without
guess.
being allowed to have explicit dream sequences.
But it's like he scotch taped something together that he tore apart. There was
Yeah.
no family. Mike wasn't in an insane asylum. Anyways, it doesn't matter.
I agree.
Mike didn't need to ask me anymore. I enlisted for the duration.
And they set off on their quest because now Reggie wants to get revenge because his wife and kids have been blown up. And Mike wants revenge because they killed his brother?
I guess, yeah, and he just doesn't like the tall man. He could put him in an insane asylum.
Yeah, but like 7 minutes into the movie, these guys have nothing left to lose.
Yeah.
And they are on the road hunting the tall man across the country.
Great scene where they rob a hardware store to gear up.
I have a whole note about the shopping scene.
Yeah,
'Cause there's a couple important moments in here. Reggie's gun.
Is great.
Because you're thinking, oh, he finds a double barrel shotgun. Pretty cool. Then he fuses the two double barrel shotguns together and cuts them in like a cool looking angle. We won't spoil it, but he uses it once in the whole movie, and it's not for a very long time.
He very deliberately doesn't use it in a lot of points where it would have made sense.
Yeah. Also in the hardware robbing store scene is them deciding they need a chainsaw.
Right.
They just both are like, oh yeah, that'll be perfect.
And they make a flamethrower
they make
out of they like zip tie it together. Also, I love just the design, and this even comes up. Reggie has the bandolier that has 40 bullets and 8 drill bits.
I didn't even notice
Just
that.
like these huge silver drill bits, and he just like needs extras. They use it. He uses a drill later.
He does use it later. I love this movie because it's trying to pretend like this is a normal thing that's like a trope everyone will know.
Right.
It's like, oh, we're gonna go hunt the tall man. That means, of course, we need flamethrower. Of course, we need chainsaw.
It's kind of like the scene in like Night of the Living Dead or Day of the Dead where, you know, they're in the mall. And they're like,
Yeah.
what do we got? But it doesn't make any sense because like you just have everything.
Yeah.
You have like all the time to do this quest. You have like 10 years.
Yeah.
You don't just need whatever was in the first store you got to.
And they're also just like Mike and Reggie are so serious and also are like pretending they know what you're supposed to do.
Right.
No one has ever done this before in any movie. Like when people go to hunt werewolves and there's the scene where they go get silver bullets, the audience gets it. They're gonna go fight the tall man and his dwarves.
Yeah.
We don't know you need a flamethrower.
Well, we need a drill, a flamethrower, and a chainsaw. I mean, that'll cover our
like
bases,
8
right?
hammers.
A grenade in like a silk box. So they go into a place, immediately split up, right?
Yeah, this is when they go to the mausoleum, right? The first
Sure.
mausoleum?
Is it a mausoleum? I don't know.
know.
So
But-
they chainsaw their way in, and they show you the whole 10-second, which is great. Pay that
Beautiful.
off. Mike finds a naked corpse on a table.
Yep.
Which
Which
is
was
good.
alchemy.
Was
You
it?
noticed, yeah.
Okay, I
The
thought
girl
maybe
that shows up later in the movie,
they
that
didn't
is
have enough
her.
people for it to be anyone else, so that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, it's the only other actress on set.
Yeah.
They also make a comment. This is like the first thing we've seen them do, Mike
Yeah.
and Reggie. Like they got all their guns, and then this is the next thing. And in the monologue, Reggie's like, "The tall man. Sometimes he sets traps for us."
Sometimes he sets traps for us.
And I was like, "When?" Like this is the first time. How do you know that?
Yeah.
Or like, have they been doing this for years? Are we cutting Like, is this 5 years into them chasing the tall man, or has it been like 4 days?
There was there's some lines about like we've mostly been in the Northeast that like
Been on
kind
the
of
road.
make me think, yeah.
Yeah.
We'd spent a long time on the road, northwest mostly. It wasn't hard to pick up his trail. Places he'd been always looked the same.
And like so a little later here they find we'll talk about the boogans here, which is very good. But when they find that, they say something about how like this is an escalation, like we'd never seen something quite like that. But yeah, it kind of makes me
his
think.
calling cards, the tall man's calling
Yeah,
cards.
it does make me think that there's been
It's like
something.
they've been doing this for a while.
I guess.
It wasn't the first time the tall man had left one of his calling cards. That one was the worst.
Now they're walking around Haunted Mausoleum 1.
Yeah.
They find a naked corpse, and then they find a lady under. I guess it was Liz, but not really Liz.
Yeah, it was Liz, but it was a trick.
Yeah, and she's got the Professor Quirrell Boogans monster, which honestly really enjoyed this.
Great effect.
Great effect.
Really good
I was not
effect.
expecting it.
No,
So a little guy pops out from her back,
her like spine.
and then like issues a challenge to them to go east. I
Oh
think.
yeah.
Come east if you dare.
Reggie sets her on fire, and this was one of my favorite scenes in the whole movie. Is because like they show this, and I go like I'm like oh, and then it cuts to Reggie making the exact face I just made, and then setting it on fire immediately. I'm like, yeah, Reggie, you get it.
Get the fuck
We then get a little bit of Liz backstory.
Right.
She's in the car going to her grandpa's funeral with her grandma. She gives a very convincing, no, I'm not having more bad dreams.
Are you still having those nightmares?
No. No more.
They're at the funeral. The priest is being really sketchy.
Yeah,
we
he's
find
like-
out later he's been corrupted by the tall man. This town is basically already under the tall man's influence, but they don't know yet. But the priest knows.
There's not enough like sets or extras to really. It's just that there's a very sweaty priest.
Yeah. And she like walks away from the. This was really confusing. Here's one of my whys. I'm like, what the hell happened here? Because they're at the funeral. She goes off and gets lost in like a spooky part of the mausoleum.
Right.
Nothing happens to her though. But she starts being like, Mike. She tries to like Luke and Leia connect. She's like, Mike, you need to save me. And I'm like, but nothing's even. You're just like sitting
Fine.
on a
You're
bench.
just at your grandpa's funeral.
Mike, where are you?
And then her grandma goes back into the church after and sees the priest stabbing a sacrificial dagger through the corpse of the grandpa.
Yeah.
And then the grandma faints. And then the next scene, the girl and the grandma are just home.
Yep.
And the girl doesn't know. The grandma, I guess, didn't say anything. Like, why did they go home? How did they get home? She was lost and the grandma was fainted and then they're just home.
Yeah, I hope you're not looking for an answer here.
And then the next thing that happens is the grandma gets taken by the tall man.
Right. There's a lot of the tall man is not concerned with like planning, you know?
No.
He just lets people go and then gets them. I'll get them back when I
But
need
like,
them.
why
It's
didn't
fine.
the tall man just take the grandma when she was at the mausoleum, and then the girl remained lost in the mausoleum?
Why, Don? Why? Doesn't make any sense.
Graveside service is about to begin.
There's me a lot of cutting back and forth here, and sometimes the thing we cut back and forth between is not of consequence. But let's try our best, because we cut back and the guys pick up alchemy.
Right. Kemi for short.
Kemi for short, the hitchhiker.
Mike, this is Alchemy.
Kemi for short. It's nice to meet you, Mike.
Who's immediately infatuated with Reggie.
I mean, who wouldn't be?
Who wouldn't be? He's just oozes masculinity.
Yeah.
Reggie and Mike have a pee. The way the camera is positioned, it really seems like they are peeing on each other.
Yep.
While they're having this conversation. And also,
it was very clearly a pretense to go talk, because Mike's like, I think I need a whiz.
Hey, Rich, can you pull over? I gotta take
And then Reggie immediately just like faces him and gets it out. So.
And they actually both pee on each other.
Yeah, yeah.
And then Reggie gives a very concerning little talk about how excited he is to have picked up this girl because we've been on the road for a while.
Right, yeah.
And I was like, you can't say that.
Shit, Mike. Have you looked at her? You know, we've been out here a long time.
Hey, Reggie's, you know what? He's just out here hustling. He's just here to meet a nice lady and settle down after his wife blew up.
There's a scene
a week ago
where she's like, oh, we could try to stay at my uncle's bed and breakfast.
You know, my uncle owns a bed and breakfast on the other side of town.
And Reg looks at Mike and goes,
yeah. Yeah, Reggie was horny in this movie.
Reggie is horny.
That'd be great.
Then they get to a house and they set up booby traps. There's this whole they do all these Home Alone things in case the tall man shows up. They like rig a shotgun to the door. They get the grenade out of the silk case, which is my favorite thing.
They put in the Budweiser can.
Yep.
By the door.
Yep. Exactly.
The house they go to. The town they've rolled into is abandoned and clearly been. It's the tall
Just
man's
another one,
doing.
yeah.
Right. It's like the tall man has taken over this town, and that's why it's a ghost town. The Kemi is trying to go there. She says, "Let's go to my uncle's bed and breakfast. He can probably like help us out." They go there. Bed and breakfast is run down, boarded up.
Yeah.
And then they go up to the door, and she's like, "How are we gonna get in?"
I can't believe they just abandoned the place. And I don't have a clue as to how the hell we're gonna get in here.
I was like, why are you still going in? You don't know these guys. You're a hitchhiker. Clearly, this isn't a place for you to stay.
No, it's just a
They
setup.
immediately chainsaw the door open, and they never explain to her, like, what they're doing. She just tags along for the rest. Now, I will say, I think she's the tall man.
Yeah.
That's probably why.
Well, I mean, when you introduce the 5th character in a movie total,
Yeah.
and it's a hitchhiker that the good guys pick up.
But at this point in the movie, I was like, why doesn't she leave?
Yeah.
Why is she still there?
Well, also at this point in the movie, it's kind of like it's been the apocalypse.
Yeah.
Because there's just no people and all the houses are abandoned. It's like the stand.
Yeah, and there's
and
even like, they see one house has lights on,
Yeah.
and then the curtain is drawn, so you can't see the lights anymore, and Reggie goes like, see that, Mike? And Mike's like, yeah, either too scared to come outside or something.
Trapped. Too scared to come out. Nothing to do but watch and wait.
Yeah.
As if like, it's like they've done this so many times, they know what the towns are gonna react like.
I'd love to like, we had the same thing about like When Evil Lurks. Has the whole country just,
What is the scope?
everyone dead? Like, I don't know.
It makes me think like somehow Mike and Reggie are causing it, because presumably the rest of America is just the same.
Like, we're doing okay. Like, the tall man's doing okay. You see, there's like 100 dwarves, which is like pretty good.
Great
It's not
productivity.
the entire Pacific Northwest.
No.
And then I believe we cut back to the priest who gets bald.
He does get bald. The priest killing scene
Yeah.
is actually quite visually striking.
Yeah.
And
This was another place where the budget went.
like, I mean, pretty intense imagery, but the image of, what is it called? The beads with the
Rosary.
The rosary.
Yeah.
A priest being literally hung by his own rosary.
Yeah.
Is a pretty like striking image
There's
in a
like-
mausoleum. Like, it's pretty intense.
Yeah, there's like 4 total minutes of like Catholicism like symbols here.
Yeah.
They don't really do anything
like
with it,
make
but
a
it's
point of
cool.
showing the cross
Yeah.
hanging him.
And like, yeah, he's like telekinesis is it.
You think that when you die, you go to heaven. You come to us.
Yeah, priest gets killed by ball, which is an excellent. I mean, this feels like the money shot. This
Yeah.
is what people came for, right?
Yeah.
The ball kill.
Yeah.
And it's fantastic.
Yeah.
What it is totally outshone by is Elizabeth versus the grandma dwarf.
Yes.
Because she sees her own grandma, who's been turned into a dwarf, and is pursued by the dwarf. Gets around the corner and just clunes the dwarf with like an urn and sends it flying.
Yeah. These things are just there for the same reason Mini-Me was in Austin Powers.
But it's her grandma.
Sorry, Grandma.
Yeah.
It was like a full slapstick moment.
It was weird. There was a little bit of that. I mean, even right before that, when the tall man catches her and says, hello and goodbye, and then like throws her like 20 feet.
Again. And goodbye.
Then we finally get, after Liz fights her grandma as a Jawa, we get our romantic tension is finally dissolved because she meets Mike in a grave and they immediately make out.
Yes, the girl, psychic girl Liz.
Yeah.
We guess we kind of forgot to explain. She gets lured back to this mausoleum.
Right.
By the tall man.
Sure.
Through telekinesis.
If you want her, come tonight.
Which is coincidentally also the mausoleum that Mike and Reg are just going to because it's the only mausoleum in town. And I guess that's just where you find the tall man.
Yeah.
So they have now converged. So they meet up, they immediately make out.
Reggie shows up and is like, what the hell's going on here? It's because, he wants to be the one who's getting laid.
And Mike's like, Reg.
What the hell's going on here? Reg.
Then they go back, now that they've got Liz, they go back to the bed and breakfast house, the booby trap bed and breakfast house. Mike starts the fire with the flamethrower, which is kind of worth the price of admission. If you want to watch this movie, if you want to see a guy start a fire in a home using a flamethrower, it's in this movie. You can just go watch it for free. And then they both really creepily come on to their two respective women with the line, I'll watch over you.
Right.
I could use some sleep.
Come on, I'll watch over you.
Because this girl he just met says, I'm going to go to sleep because I was almost killed today and my grandma's
I had to
dead.
fight my grandma's reanimated corpse.
So I really need to lay down. And Mike goes, I'll watch over you.
Yeah.
No, this is good timing, bud. This seems like the right time to be doing this.
Come on, I'll watch over you.
Reggie's just like coaching him up. He's like,
No, I'll watch over you.
Well, Reggie does one better. Because Reggie's sex scene.
This was spectacular.
I don't...
My favorite line in the whole movie was Alchemy going, I love your head.
God, Reg. I love your head.
It's just, but it's like the least flattering. It's the least sexy sex scene you've ever seen.
It's up there. Reggie stays fully clothed. He's obviously very uncomfortable.
He's terrified.
Yeah. She's just throwing herself around. It's baffling.
Then Liz is abducted?
Well, first the grenade goes off.
Oh yeah, they accidentally, which they determined was either a dog or a cat.
They can't
blew
tell.
Up. They can't tell.
It's like Kimmy's uncle had a cat or a dog or something. I can't tell.
Because there's just some innards.
And then comes my favorite line in the movie.
Right.
Which is where Mike says, what are we doing, Reg? I'm a 19-year-old kid. You're a bald, middle-aged ex-ice cream man.
Who are we kidding? I'm a 19-year-old kid. You're a bald, middle-aged ex-ice cream vendor.
And this is the point in the movie where I thought, okay, they know. These guys know what they're doing. This movie...
Forget the balls are back. That's your tagline.
That's the tagline.
I'm a 19-year-old kid. You're a bald, middle-aged ex-ice cream vendor.
Because this movie is threading that line of unintentionally funny and intentionally being campy. There's clearly moments that are intentional camp and parts that are just poorly written and funny, laugh at the movie. This is where the movie's letting you know it knows. Tongue in cheek. This is silly. We're having fun with this. It was ridiculous that Reggie was an ice cream vendor.
And the fact that they didn't seem to know that in the first one, they're just like, yeah, regular guy job, ice cream man.
For a man who is 20 to 50.
In this town of 11 people. Yeah. But in this one, they're like, you're just an ice cream man. And they calls him bald. Everyone's just so hung up on that. I love it.
Know.
I noticed, obviously, but the characters aren't.
And it's he's clearly been bald forever. At some point, you stop talking about it. He's been bald, presumably his whole life.
If he just shaved it off and was just all the way bald, he's so much balder than just being all the way bald.
He's the baldest possible bald.
God, Reg. I love your head.
And then, after this little self-doubt speech from Mike, that's when Liz is abducted from a window.
Yep.
One of the other best scares in the movie genuinely got me. Was the tall man in the window. Because what I like about the tall man is he's this big guy. He's old. You think he's going to be slow and methodical. Every time he's fighting people, he just he's just frantic. Yeah. He the second he comes into frame, he presses his hands through the glass and just grabs her and just takes her. Mm-hmm. He's very kinetic. Which isn't what you'd expect from such a big actor.
He's a great physical presence. It does toe the line of there's no established rules, so it's hard to be scared. It's kind of the Freddy Krueger thing of
Yeah.
It's just like, what are you going to do? He could just show up in a mirror and kidnap you for free anytime.
But the Freddy Krueger thing,
too bad with it.
The Freddy Krueger thing, just to give them some credit, he can only kill them in the dream. At least until the later movies when he can kill them outside the dream. But like in the originals, so the kids beat him by like staying up and then using the whole dream logic. Phantasm doesn't have that one rule.
No.
The tall man is just always Freddy Krueger, whether they're asleep or awake, and that does make it hard to evaluate the threat.
Yeah, they don't get too hung up on it, where there's not a lot of like running from the, like literally running away from the tall man tense scenes.
Yeah.
There was a little bit more in the first one, and that was kind of fine because it was more about the visuals, but in this one, it's fine.
It's fine.
So let me get a car chase. And here's where the first one, we talked about how they just didn't have the camera to make it interesting. And like, isn't that where Don Coscarelli almost died, was filming that car chase? Yep. This one's better.
This was a good car chase. It's also just the least, if you told me to guess, like, what is the big final conflict with the tall man going to include? An action-packed car chase
where he pit maneuvers them off and they flip their car like Blues Brothers.
Like, you don't look at the tall man and think like, that guy's good at racing. That guy's gonna ride a hearse and he's gonna knock other cars off the road. It does not look at that vibe
just
at
the
all.
scene of him like, it's just stunning.
It's like weird to say, but it was a genuinely good car chase and a great crash. Like clearly they actually flipped and crashed a car.
I liked Reggie being stuck in the car, being like, "Go on without me," and he's like, "Fine."
It's like there's no urgency.
Just give me the knife. Hey, there's no sense in both of us fighting. Oh wait, come on. I'll leave you now.
And then we go to yet another mausoleum, and now there's just more.
I think it's the same
set. I don't know if it's supposed to be the same place. Maybe it's fine.
Let's talk, because we're getting into the final confrontation here, the very end. I need to say, this movie's lack of sense of place is amazing, because clearly they did have one set. And it's supposed to be 3 different mausoleums and a bed and breakfast and also someone's house. Like, it's just all the places. And it's all like soundstage set with nothing outside the windows.
Yeah.
There's like barely any establishing shots. Like, there's a couple of shots outside.
Of like the RoboCop stock footage of like boarded up storefronts.
There's a graveyard shot. There's like one shot of the exterior of one of the mausoleums, but I think they use it again.
There's one I forgot to call out where there was like a great crane shot over like a bunch of open graves. That was like, that really stood out to me because it was like, hey, we're outside and looking at many things.
There's another shot in the same graveyard of the mausoleum with like red light pouring out through the windows, and I'm like, that's beautiful. But most of the movie is so claustrophobic and in these tiny sets. And it does start, I think when I think back and think like, why did I have trouble recalling what goes on in Phantasm 2?
Yeah.
Like days after watching it. It's because there's no sense of place.
Yeah.
Like the first act looks exactly like the third act. They're just walking around hallways with a flamethrower and there's nothing to kind of break it up to make you be like, oh, it's the third act set piece versus the first act set piece.
That's a good point. And they don't do a good job on like a macro level. On a micro level, in every scene, I know what they're trying to do, which is why it didn't necessarily bother me. Like, it was never like, I always knew the character's goal. And that was enough for me to just be like, I don't really care whether they're in the first mausoleum or the second.
Yeah, for
sure.
I know
they're trying to get that guy right now, and that's fine.
Come on. Let's go kick some ass.
So we lead into our final set piece here. They're in another mausoleum. There's now a bit of backstory. There's now some regular-sized guys that work for the tall man that are maybe zombies or
gravers. Gas mask boys.
Which I think maybe they just realized that when they tried to shoot some of these scenes with dwarves that they wanted some regular-sized guys to have fights with.
Well, and as I think I mentioned, my biggest gripe with this movie, not my biggest gripe, a gripe I have with this movie is that all henchmen should have been dwarves. You have the dwarves available.
I think they should.
He's creating an army of dwarves.
Yeah.
Just have all the guys be dwarves.
But Reed, it doesn't make any sense because there's regular gravity and regular heat on this planet. You can't have the dwarves doing this job.
They can clearly be on Earth. They're all over the place.
No. They're for the other dimension.
The dwarves. And they gotta crush them because of the gravity and the heat.
Because basically this entire sequence, they're going back there to rescue Liz.
Yeah, because she's been kidnapped. She's now being wheeled into an incinerator.
Yeah.
Just alive and
which
fine.
She foils and kicks the guy into the incinerator. But then she's still lost and wandering around the mausoleum.
Yeah.
So Mike and Reg go back. They tell Alchemy, don't come.
Yeah.
It's too dangerous, Alchemy. She's like, how are you gonna find me? He's like, I'll find you if I'm able.
How are you gonna find me?
I'll find you. If I'm able.
What's that supposed to mean if you're able?
They go to rescue her, and basically Mike and Reg wander around the mausoleum and just do all kinds of nonsense set pieces until the end of the movie.
This is awesome.
It's incredible, and they can also be filmed in any order.
Yep.
Because it's just a bunch of random things happening in no particular order.
They just kind of split up to, I don't know, they split up to like find their own guy that they have to fight. Reg gets into a chainsaw fight with that gas mask man.
The longer chainsaw being pulled out is, of course, incredible.
Just stunning.
Just stunning. I don't know if this is the first movie to do the thing where a guy pulls out a chainsaw that is longer than the other chainsaw.
Has this been done multiple times?
It happens in Mandy.
Okay.
And I thought, wow, that's so funny and creative. And now I'm like, oh, they stole it from Phantasm 2, which makes me think...
The Mandy guy definitely saw Phantasm 2.
Definitely, but it also wouldn't shock me if someone had done this before Phantasm 2.
Right, gotcha.
There's lots of henchmen being killed. One henchman gets a ball in his hand.
And I put down here that this guy was like Will Ferrell and Austin Powers, because he just like, he gets the ball in his hand, then he cuts his hand off, but then he gets like, the ball goes like
the
up.
Other ball.
Yeah, the other ball like blends him up, and it's like throwing him around the room, and he's just sitting there like, oh no.
Yeah, being turned into soup. And that was the special ball, because that was the gold ball.
Oh,
because the silver balls are kind of like the little balls, and the gold ball is like the one with the burrowing machine on the front.
Okay.
That's different.
I didn't.
That's yeah, you got it.
I didn't keep all.
You
my
probably
balls
didn't see it on Blu-ray, which is how you got to catch these little details.
Well, there's the great scene where the 3 balls come out of the.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, it's that was.
It's
stunning.
it's like TIE fighters leaving the Death Star.
I love that the balls exclusively kill the tall man's henchman.
Yeah.
And as well as the priest, I guess. They take off the priest's ear.
Yeah.
So they all fight their various guys, and then we lead into our Mike gets the ball to open the socket, which clearly
you're skipping a very important thing.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
You're skipping Reg finally using the double shotgun, double shotgun. I guess quad gun.
Really, the payoff of the whole movie so far.
Because he built this stupid shotgun in the first 10 minutes. He's not used it the entire movie.
He in fact has elected to hit people with it instead of shoot them.
He's gone out of his way
to like switch to other things because he doesn't want to shoot this thing. And
I will say my headcanon for that, well, we'll say, so there's 4 dwarves walking up the stairs. He blasts them all.
Damn it.
One shot kills 4 dwarves.
Awesome.
Incredible shot. Also, like the yellow goo flying out the back. Genuinely great little creature effects and shot there. And then he throws the gun away because apparently it's disposable. My headcanon being that when he assembled this and fused 2 shotguns together, it made it so you could not reload them, which is probably why he was so reluctant to use it, because he knew he could only shoot it once.
I love that.
Fantastic.
It might just be like literally the case with the prop they made,
yeah,
where they could only put it in once.
But it's a pretty clear comedy beat when he goes.
It was
and just throws it away.
It was excellent. I had a hard time not like kind of feeling bad for the dwarves. They're that intimidating, and they just get murdered and like thrown around a lot.
They're
and,
also
like,
just
people.
like, yeah, they're like it's not their fault. They're people that have been turned into this from their death.
And I guess being shotgun is the best case scenario for them. They don't have to go back to the hot, heavy planet.
Because of the gravity. And the heat.
That's true. Or have your granddaughter hit you with an urn.
Yeah,
and that was way more embarrassing. Really embarrassing for that grandma. Yes, the silver ball is embedded in someone's hand, which gives Mike the chance to kind of take it safely to the door.
It's set up. 1 minute earlier, it's stuck in the guy's mouth, and it can't move. So now he knows that when it's in your body, it's stuck there.
It's a pretty good script.
Despite all the times it's been in someone's forehead and then gotten out of that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
It's set up.
It's set up.
It's set up. So he gets the ball. He used it to unlock the keyhole that was clearly for this silver ball.
The keyhole was for the silver ball, not an electrical plug, which is what it really looked like.
The big one for the dishwasher.
Yeah.
That's what it looked like, but no.
That's what it looked like. They go in. My nostalgia of 1 year ago kicks in as they walk into the white room with the tuning fork and the... Also, I feel like in the first Phantasm, you complained that when they looked in the black barrels, they didn't see dwarves.
Yeah. Budgetary constraint or leaving it to your imagination, you decide. But they tell you that all these barrels contain dwarves. One of them peeks in there and they're like, oh yeah, there's dwarves in there. I think so. Well, yeah, I said earlier, I was really happy when we saw the dwarf in this one and they actually show the dwarf. And I was
but this one, there's literally the scene of them looking in the little window and you can see the little dwarf in the barrel. I thought, that's that budget.
The budget wasn't like high on this movie, I'm sure, but it was enough.
It was the highest of the entire franchise.
I believe you.
So it only goes down from here.
Let's torch this place and get the hell out of here.
They go into the room.
We have the exact same scene of them falling into the thing and getting pulled out. This time there's a little bit, again, just a little bit of budget where there's like the little dwarf that's like crawling its way over to them.
There is. I think it's the shot they used in the first one of the hot, heavy planet was like reused 4 times.
Right.
Whereas in this one, they actually had like different angles of the weird
and there's like the weird like color shift on Mike and Reggie.
It actually looked pretty good. The dwarf like coming up to Reg was pretty like gross. It wasn't scary, but it was kind of like a, ooh.
Yeah. I just have to think, if you have access to the entire like multiverse because you're from another dimension, really the best laborers for this planet? This is plan A is going to US small towns. Digging up corpses,
people first.
Right? Killing people, digging up corpses,
reanimating them,
shooting them up with yellow goop in order to turn them small.
Then putting them in black jars.
Yeah.
Then shifting them through a port. Why do they go in the jar? Is that part of the dwarfing process?
Reed. It makes perfect
Because
sense.
they clearly are like shoved through the tuning fork in the jar. Because on the other side, there's a bunch of jars, like barrels, like tipped over.
Right.
So they get like pushed through, and then those things tip over, and then the dwarves are
like kind of up in the air a little bit, so it's like.
Maybe we'll find it out in Phantasm 3, Lord of the Dead.
Oh, I really hope so. Or Phantasm 4 or 5.
Oblivion, or Phantasm 5, Ravager.
Yeah, that'd be good.
That could be it.
Anyways,
they have a great battle with the Tall Man. The Tall Man shows up. He throws some people around.
We get some great world building back to where the Tall Man, he pulls out his secret weapon that he's had in his back pocket, which is a bug comes out of his head.
Yeah, it doesn't do anything.
No, it's really gross.
It's gross.
It's gross, and it just kind of wiggles at Mike, and then do they kill it? I don't know.
He's clearly like omnipotent and super strong, and could just have killed Mike with his bare hands.
Has him by the neck, and a la Attack of the Clones decides to just kind of throw a bug at him.
Use a slug instead.
That doesn't do anything.
It doesn't work. And it buys just enough time for Liz
to
stab him with the injector machine full of the yellow goop with the hydrochloric acid, which Reggie did do earlier. Reggie saw the yellow goop and put hydrochloric acid in, which was an important setup, even though Reggie didn't know that they would need it to be that.
Light just fell down.
It's just part of the ghost. We'll leave it.
Reg, who are we kidding?
Reggie didn't know that they were going to need that yellow goop to be full of hydrochloric acid, and the girl didn't know it was hydrochloric acid.
Nope.
But anyways,
they have one prop and one set. They're going to do the thing they can do.
They did the thing. They stabbed him with the hydrochloric acid yellow goop. The Tall Man melts from the inside.
Honestly, great.
Like, fantastic visual effects.
Yeah, it looked awesome. Like the way he was melting, it was very, I don't know, I haven't seen a lot of this era of, what's the name, Tom Savini effects. Like, this wasn't Tom Savini, it was like one of his guys, but
cult.
I'm not in this, but like in watching, like I think it was waxwork, like maybe some like time-lapse stuff of his like hand melting away, and there's like bones on. It was great.
It looked really good. This is probably one of the better effects in the movie.
Yeah.
Other than the guy with the burrower coming out of his face, both of those were really great gore effects. I actually forgot to check who did all the gore effect makeup, but
I didn't. Greg Nicotero was the guy who was a Tom Savini protege.
Greg Nicotero.
He was on the crew, but it looks like he was the guy.
That's really interesting. Greg Nicotero is, if you ever watch horror documentaries on Shudder or anything, he is always on them.
Yep.
And he was the lead effects guy on The Walking Dead.
So if you look at, so I looked up on IMDb, and there's like 12 guys listed. 2 of them have pictures, and one of them's Greg Nicotero. So I'm going to give him the credit.
Yeah.
If he wasn't the main guy, and it was one of the other guys with no pictures and no other credits,
I think it's fair. It was probably Greg Nicotero.
Probably Greg Nicotero.
But anyway, Greg Nicotero does some great work. The guy melts. It looks fantastic. Then there's the big getaway. Alchemy shows back up in a hearse to rescue them after Reggie's burned the whole place down with the flamethrower. They get the
Reggie
safe.
just loves that flamethrower.
Friggin' loves it.
Yeah.
They get in the hearse. They're getting their getaway. Happy ending. The limo. It's not a limo. It's a hearse. It has the limo divider.
Yeah.
Which I don't think hearses have.
Let us know in the comments.
Because I
don't
think
know.
you just put a coffin in the back. I don't think people go in the back.
I don't, like, maybe just, like, secure it? I don't know.
I think you just strap.
But anyway, they roll down the thing. So, I mean, there's no way they built a hearse and then added this.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Maybe hearses have the divider. But the divider goes up so they can both make out with their ladies in the moving car. And then, of course, big final twist. You're going to be shocked at home. No. Hold on to your seats. Alchemy turns out to be Tall Man. And
was she literally the tall man?
I don't know if she always was. I really hope she was, because she was so poorly written earlier in the movie that it only makes sense if she was the tall man.
I can't believe they just abandoned the place. And I don't have a clue as to how the hell we're gonna get in here.
I know he turned into a lady in the first one to murder people, but in this one, she was like upstairs when he kidnapped oh no, I've gone cross-eyed.
Yeah, I don't know. But she's the tall man now. Her hair falls off. She reveals herself to be the tall man.
Yeah.
She kills.
Did she actually?
Reg.
Yeah, because he's like bloody.
He like walks out, his face is all bloody, and then he just collapses in the road, limp.
It was in a way where they can hand wave it to bring him back for the next one. I assume they will.
Well, certainly, because Mike turns to Liz and says, "It's only a dream. This is only a dream.
This is not happening. We're gonna wake up. It's a dream."
And the tall man leans in, drops the divider, leans, and says, "No, it's not."
Right. Yeah.
Cut to credits.
It's only a dream.
No, it's not.
Tall man says it's not a dream, and then drives off with them in the back with Reg dead in the road. I mean, there's 5 of these. Reg is on the box of the 5th one, so they're gonna do something where this was also a dream.
The tall man loves not finishing people off, except the priest.
I mean, he clearly gets off on this. He like literally told them where to go with the spine monster.
If you dare.
Yeah, he lured Liz to the mausoleum.
He's never actually killed anyone. It's only the balls that have killed people, or Reg and Mike.
I guess.
But let us know in the comments.
I also don't know what
the tall man has any kills.
Like, he just wants to make dwarves, but he seems to be having a really good time messing with these people. Also, why are Mike and Liz telepathically connected?
Because Stephen King wrote that in some books, I suppose.
Yeah, that's a big Stephen King move.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, she could have just been a girl in the town that they find and rescue. There was no reason for them to be
There was a little bit of that in the first one, right? Didn't like Mike and Jody have like a little bit of like a? There was a couple times they had kind of a psychic link. Thing. It wasn't like
the first
developed.
movie was so dreamlike that I couldn't tell it was supposed to be
even this one
psychic versus.
There wasn't as many like explicit dream sequences in this, but even this one, especially the first 20 minutes and like the ending, like you don't know if any of this happened.
Well, I certainly don't think the end happened.
And they can decide exactly what they want to acknowledge when they start a new movie.
Yeah.
They could just have Kid Mike again and be like, well, let's go get Jody from that car accident. Do they really?
Because the kid who played Mike in the first movie comes back to play adult Mike in the 3rd movie.
Oh, wow.
And 4th, I think.
That's... All right, see you guys next Halloween.
What a ride.
I really enjoyed it.
Really enjoyed it.
It was fun.
I think it would be a lot better as a movie night movie. Like,
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of moments when you're laughing out loud by yourself.
Yeah.
You know you're gonna have a better time with a group of friends, but it's still it was entertaining enough on my own.
It hit a nice balance. I don't think it dragged very often. And the boring parts are mostly at the start when you're kind of like still learning about the movie, and it's fine. I enjoyed basically all of this movie. I mean, it's really hard for me to say that this is like there's so many just directly better versions of this, right? Like if you want to watch like an action kind of horror movie, Guys on the Road, like it's hard for me to put this anywhere near the top of that list, but. You know, if you're interested in Phantasm, if you're interested in kind of seeing something low budget, off the beaten path, someone's passion project, I certainly think this is worth your time.
Yeah, it's really fun. If you like the first one, it's like a no-brainer. I think this is easily watchable without having seen the first.
Yeah.
As just an action schlocky 80s romp. Like, you're not really going to miss too much.
I did see, I always love looking at IMDb reviews. It's one of my favorites. And one of the reviews was that I watched this without watching the first one, and it all made sense, except I wish they'd explained why he's making them into dwarves.
well, we have an answer for you, sir. Just give us a hot moment. We'll play the clip.
The dwarves. And they gotta crush them because of the gravity and the heat.
I said in the introduction, I think my biggest gripe with the movie is that I wanted more new ideas.
Yeah.
I mean, probably my favorite thing about Phantasm 1 is just that you were like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Like there's the fact they bring in the alternate dimension, there's the yellow blood, and it just really kind of sets off that like, whoa,
Yeah.
what?
What is this?
And there was good effects, right? There were like the technical aspects were better. I think the average of all the elements of the movie was much better, but there just wasn't, I wanted another new idea. Show me something else new other than he just has regular human henchmen now and there's a bug in his head.
Yeah, well, it's kind of more of a reboot than a sequel in that it's not a reboot, but it's like, let's take all the same toys that we laid out in the first one, the Tall Man, the Dwarves, the Mausoleum, but let's just make it an action movie. But we're not really going to expand on it. And I'm trying to think of things they really expanded on. It's like, I think they introduced in this one that the Tall Man was digging up the bodies to be turned into dwarves?
No,
that wasn't the first one.
He does it to their brother or their friend.
Yeah, you're right. So it really doesn't add much to the lore. It makes the Tall Man and the whole lore around the Tall Man feel more universal. It's not just in Mike's head. There's people in other towns experiencing this. It is like an apocalyptic event. But they don't add new stuff or new lore.
I want to pull up a little connection that it's just occurring to me to what is actually a DVD pack that I had growing up and watched many times. And that's a little series called Resident Evil with Mila Djokovic. The first movie of that is sort of a very small, contained thing where they're going through like a underground facility. And it's not good, but it's fun. There's some like memorable parts. It's good. It's fairly small in scale, and she's like a regular person. The second one is just kind of like an action movie. They're out running around New York fighting guys. The last one is like surrealist, like avant-garde like it's crazy. And I'm really hoping Phantasm goes there because it is kind of a similar arc, and like it's a similar thing of like the first one is fairly creative. The second one is just fun, dumb schlock. What next?
What's next?
And it's never like ascending. The third one is not going to be the best movie, and I'm certain that's the case with Phantasm. I'm going to call my shot.
Yeah.
But there's no way they get way better and come up with a bunch of new stuff in Phantasm 5 Ravager.
No.
I'd love to be wrong, but I expect a similar kind of arc where it just gets dumber.
Yeah.
And more entertaining for it.
Yeah,
so that's what I'm hoping for.
Well, when there's like these established IPs like Star Wars, there's such clear iconography in the IP, and it makes sense why it's exciting. Lightsabers, stormtroopers, TIE fighters. They're like visually striking. They look like a bunch of other things you know about, but it's kind of the refined, market-tested version of the best one. Like the stormtrooper is not an original idea.
No.
But like it's the perfect execution of it. It's such an iconic armor. Every kid knows what a stormtrooper is. It's perfect. It's the perfect design. George Lucas designed all these little things, and that's why Star Wars is beloved. It has all this stuff in it that people like. Phantasm stuff is so specific and weird.
Yellow blood and silver balls that drill into your head.
A tall man, a mausoleum being like the main, like these aren't things people like.
No.
These aren't things you look for.
They were not focus grouped.
And it almost feels like it's weird that the movies have to include them. Because it's like, they wanted to make an action movie about like hunting down a bad guy. But it's like, oh, it's Phantasm. How are we gonna put the balls in? How are we gonna make sure it's in a mausoleum? Well, it's like it was an afterthought.
We've been talking about it in this, that like when the balls come out or when he says the funeral's about to begin, we're like, oh, yeah. But like we're weirdos.
Yeah.
People don't do this.
And I'm wondering if the further ones kind of make it more like about that stuff. It felt like the Phantasm things were incidental in this. It was an action movie that had Phantasm stuff in it.
It's almost like, you're talking about almost like Flanderization, where it kind of loses like what actually made the first one interesting. It's like the very surface level, like what are the things I recognize?
It has them in it, but it's just an action movie now.
Yeah.
Is the third one going to be a true Phantasm movie like the first one, or is it going to be more
just a dumb movie,
another genre film that happens to be set in the Phantasm universe? Wait and see. Next Halloween, probably.
Happy Halloween, you're going to find out with us. Right here in the green corner.
Should we move into scoring?
I think we should. I will start.
You start. We're gonna go. It's deep dive. We're gonna do our critical score, our personal scores, and finish it off with our MVP. So, what's your critical score, Avery, for Phantasm 2?
I thought about this actually harder than I expected to, but I'm gonna land on a C+ again, which is the same thing I gave the last one. And I think it's just because I about equally praise it and dock it. I think it got a better budget, did things I was missing from the first one, i.e. better prosthetics, have more fun, focus more on what worked, I think.
Yeah.
Like, the average was higher. But I just can't... There wasn't enough new stuff.
Sure.
If you're going to do a sequel, you're going to be worse by default. And you have to find a way to be better. And while the technical elements were better and kind of the average was better, there just weren't peaks higher than the first one. And I didn't like the first one that much, but this was nowhere near as creative as the first one.
Right.
And so I think that averages out to it is about the same level of movie from a critical perspective for me as the first one, and that's a C+. For my personal review, last one I gave a C- to. I'm going a lot higher. This was a B-.
Okay.
I enjoyed this movie. It's definitely not a rewatch, and if I compare it to a B movie for me is just kind of any given Saturday action movie.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm turning this on over, I don't know, Minority Report.
Sure.
Or Hunt for Red October. Like, that's kind of a B. It's just like, it's a good old movie.
Yeah.
And I forget most of it when it ends. But I think it's approaching that tier, where I
Okay.
did really have fun watching it. I was not really ever bored, and there's parts of it that I loved. There was a couple scenes I really loved. So that's a B-.
Great. I think that's fair. My critical is going to be a B-. I was on the fence about C+.
Okay.
But I ended up with a B-. Here, my final justification for it was that there was a couple scenes in this movie that we talked about that told me they knew what movie they were making. Tongue in cheek.
Reg, who are we kidding? I'm a 19-year-old kid. You're a bald, middle-aged ex-ice cream vendor.
It wasn't an accident. They were trying to be silly. They were trying to have fun with it. They were trying to not take themselves too seriously. And because of that, I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt that if some things are stupid or didn't work perfectly, I think it was all part of the design to kind of make it a fun movie you don't have to think that hard about.
Yeah.
If I believed they were trying to make an incredible work of art and those things were failures, I think I may have tipped over into C+, but because it felt like they were trying to make this type of movie and they were kind of intentionally leaning into some of those tropes and having some fun with it, it just tipped over into the B- side.
I think there's like elements of that. There's like, you can kind of see the foundation where Don had these grand visions of what the second one is going to be, and then after shooting the first 20 minutes, they're like, oh,
yeah,
let's have him shoot 4 Jawas at once.
My personal, I'm going to go up to B+.
Okay.
It's not an A. This is not, like, if I'm picking a movie night, this would not be in the first draft. It might be in the second draft. Like, if I've gotten through the first 10 movies I'd recommend we watch on a movie night, this would be in the next tier, where it's like, you're going to have fun, but I'm not going to pick, last episode we talked about Night of the Demons. This is not Night of the Demons.
No, that was great.
That's a perfect movie night movie. This is not that level of movie night movie, but it's still good. It's still fun. I do have an affinity for this series now, so that's bumping it up a bit higher. Like, I do find the Phantasm stuff to be kind of nostalgic, I guess. So I don't know. My love for this franchise has bumped it up from what maybe you could argue for a personal B. I'm gonna go B+. I'm gonna give it a little bit of love. It's not an A.
No,
it's not
I mean,
an A.
you gave an A- to.
I did,
the
and
last
I do
one.
think I did enjoy it more. I do think it's a better movie. The first one.
The first one, yeah. Okay. I don't, but I get it.
Yeah, at least for what I want. But it's a solid movie. I had fun, so I'm gonna go B+.
Okay.
MVPs. This was a little bit tricky.
Mine wasn't.
Okay, well, let's kick it off. What do you got?
It's our first ever repeat MVP, and this is Mr. Reggie Bannister.
Well, I'll tell you, it's gonna be our first ever triple MVP because I'm giving it to Reggie Bannister.
And I had a very specific reason. So I would be opposed to running it back with the same guy if it was for the same reason. It's not.
Okay.
The first one, I liked Reggie's character, and I just thought like he was just putting in the work. This one is for a very specific reason, that he elevated a lot of stuff with his facial acting.
Oh, yeah.
That was just... this was a big, big plus in the movie. There was like 8 times where he made a face that I lost it. And while the other guy was just like completely stone-faced, fine actor, whatever, okay, worked. I was losing it at Reggie.
His comedic physical acting is great, but his physical acting is also great. He did all his own stunts. And this sounds kind of stupid for a movie like Phantasm, but I'd say that what he put into the physical stunts for this movie actually largely contributed to it being engaging. Like, he's fully in it. He's like running around with a flamethrower, he's jumping, he's climbing.
We said similar things about the guy from Hundreds of Beavers.
Yeah.
Really added a lot, that he was actually willing to like roll down a hill and like...
He cared.
It matters, you feel it. Like if they were cutting to a wide shot of a stunt double, you don't see the face. It would be a lot worse.
He brings a lot of energy to the movie. And for a guy who is not an action movie lead, right? He doesn't look like...
I think he is. I think we just have to acknowledge he is.
I wouldn't get him, like, mixed up with Schwarzenegger. Like, I wouldn't confuse them. Yet, he still was a compelling lead in an action movie, which is crazy. It is, like, old man pants. Like it
gets
didn't.
laid?
He gets laid. It didn't look out. It didn't look out of place. It didn't seem weird. He's great. He's also kind of the heart and soul of the movie. Because I'd say that Mike's actor did a fine job.
He was just man.
But
I'm kind of happy to hear he's not back.
He's recast. We don't care about him. He wasn't particularly likable. Reggie is like the thing from the first movie you remember.
Yeah.
I was afraid I'd find you here. Come on, Mike. Get up out of there.
He's the reason you come back, and I don't know. We're gonna get there. But I'm pretty sure he becomes like the main character of this franchise.
Yeah.
He also retired from acting after Phantasm 1 and came back to work on this as Phantasm 2.
Thank
Do you know what he did in the interim? He worked at a mortuary embalming bodies. And I'm not kidding.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. MVP.
So
MVP.
if that doesn't get you MVP...
1,000 times over. And that's Phantasm 2.
That's Phantasm 2, and that's another Halloween in the books. Now, you
Okay.
think this was a good Halloween movie?
I think, it wasn't that Halloween-y.
It wasn't that Halloween-y, but it has a lot of mausoleums.
There's some graveyards.
Coffins.
It's more like winter spooky. It's more like 80s, like clinical spooky. I don't know.
I could see it being November horror.
Okay, it's November horror.
Turning to winter.
Let us know in the comments. What season of horror is this?
Yeah, what season of horror is
It's going to be part of our
Phantasm 2?
horror ratings. We're just going to assign a month. We'll give it a grade in a month.
We have an April horror.
I think we could legitimately do it.
Oh, we could do it. We could absolutely do that.
We have to fill in the Pantheon and find like a March horror.
You give me 10 minutes, I can come up with March horror.
Starry
We'll figure it
eyes.
out. Stay tuned, Patreon exclusive. Speaking of which, check out our Patreon if you haven't. There's stuff over there. We have our Hell House 2 deep dive, which is not on YouTube because of copyright reasons. We have our full other Halloween episode we shot on Patreon. The one on YouTube is there, but it has some stuff missing. Patreon's got it all.
You're gonna want to see the footage of Satan's Little Helper. Let me tell you, go check. It's free. Go check it out.
It's got the director's cut on there, so please check it out. It's a good time, and lots of other fun stuff. So our link's here for the Patreon. We appreciate all you watching. We're like, I know I say this a lot, we're very close to 1,000 subscribers. So if you've been checking our stuff out and you have not subscribed yet, please shoot us a like and a subscribe. It will help us. We are but a little baby micro channel, and we'd like to be a little bit larger. Just a little bit. Maybe upgrade these cameras so Avery doesn't have these little dots and lights by his head anymore. Thanks for watching. That's Phantasm 2. Check it out. We hope you have a safe and happy Halloween, and we'll be back out of Halloween season, probably with more horror, and find ways to justify spooky season starting, what do you think, November?
It was immediately, I would say.
Yeah, like spooky season kind of like November to October.